Okay,
That looks good.
thank you. And it's really good to be with you this morning. And today we are going to discuss a little bit about these pollination. They also call it some of the chemicals that's an issue for them and so on. The thing with this topic is that we can talk about it forever. So I was having a really big problem to collect the information of this presentation, but further to put them in some kind of a timely manner. So I will start and we'll see how we'll do it in terms of time. We know, like, pollination by itself, most of all, like all of you know, pollination is actually by, if we get into the very basic thing, is the transfer of the genetic materials going from the grain, pollen grain, from the male to the female part of the plant or the flower. That's when the seed will be developed and the next generation will be developed. This can be happened by many ways. It can happen like by many mechanical ways, like air or water or like a human, or it could be done by other means, especially like insects. And like all in all, about 3% of the plant species that we know we have are dependent on alien pollination, whether it's like something biological like insect or something different, or like air or water, as we said. So like third of our daily diet, maybe directly or indirectly, dependent upon a pollinator, whatever this pollinator is. So we have many pollinators that we know and are like around us. Of course, the most famous honeybee that we'll talk about a lot today. And we also have some others, like we have some other insects other than beetles, the same species, we have animals and plants. As you see here, this is many of the pollinators that you can find, and they are quite helpful in terms of how they are doing it. So we have, like I said, we have from insect pollinator, we have some bird, we have the wind itself, we have water, we have some ants, and they are really good pollinators, some rodents, and even some mammals too. So almost all the animals in the kingdom are utilizing their ability to pollinate plants, because at the end of the day, it's a mutual relationship between the two. So I think we should stop a little bit here just to enhance the audio.
Oh. Right there. Give that a test.
Okay.
How's that? Better?
I hope so.
That is much better, thank you.
Okay. So that's about like the pollination in general, and as you see, there is quite a big diversity here. But if you look even at the plants and like the major crops that we can later are helping us with that, you will find that there is a lot of these, vegetables and fruits that we rely on pollinator to produce the fruits or like the seed for us. But there is also like many other, especially like the leafy greens and below ground roots and some crops like corn and many herbs. We don't need pollinator, but if we need for these crops to be propagated and to go and to even like enhance their genetics, we need to produce seed from them. That's when we need sometimes. As I said, in terms of like the insect, because when I like shift gear a little bit toward our target, the honeybees, we have a lot of these, you know, insects from different order of insects that help a lot with pollinating not only the crops, but many of the natural and wild flowers that is very needed for the whole succession of the ecosystem. You see, like we have like wasps, ant bees, different bees, whether they are belong to the same species of honeybees or others, some beetles, some flies, and mosquito, even midges. Midges actually has very huge value in terms of pollinating some plants, especially near water. Some butterflies and moths, and even like little mites can do some kind of pollination too. If we go a little bit closer to the bees itself, we normally like differentiate between what we call the Apis bees, which Apis is the genus of honeybees. The scientific name is Apis mellifera, and non-Apis bees, and this is mostly solitary and sometimes non-stung bees, and we have a lot of them in our environment. And this is actually the natural pollinator of many of the habitat and many of other crops. We don't know them, but their value is quite huge. Some of them we know, like carpenter bees or like bumblebees, are very famous, but there are a lot of them, of these non-Apis bees. This is another group of them here, of the non-Apis bees. This is majority of these, like more of the southern hemisphere or like, and this is quite important in terms of like some of the food there in this region. When it comes to honeybee itself, we should know first that honeybee is domesticated and managed. We are domesticating these bees, and we are managing them to a very high level. And like the reason we are managing them is because of all of these products that we can get out of honeybees, from like the honey, the pollen, the royal jelly, the propolis, the venom of the bees itself, the bee wax. But above all, and the function that these honeybees is doing above all of these is pollination. There was a lot of issues with honeybees lately, and I'm pretty sure that you have been hearing about what's going on in terms of the health of the honeybees, what pesticide can do to them, and what's happening. Honeybee is very fascinating, as many people like it, and quite frankly, it's the most favorite insect to me. It's actually the one insect that introduced me to entomology, and I'm still a beekeeper. So for me, it's quite fascinating animal and creature, and many people feel the same, and it is quite important for them to see them around. Plus the rules and their the value that they have, it added a lot. So like as a concerned citizen, many people start to like plant some flowers so they can provide food for honeybees, and you can provide sanctuary for them. And you can find like flyers like that many places about some of these flowers. Even some celebrities join, and we have like somebody like Freeman here, Morgan Freeman. He converted his ranch in Mississippi to be like a giant sanctuary for wild bees. Not only that, but scientists too. You know, there is concern there about bees in general, and what is the population is going? Is it declining? Is something we can do? What's a factor that we can have to enhance and to make the population quite stronger? So you can see like there is a lot, many of now organization and affiliation, and some of the people are coming together, organization or like universities or government, to promote knowledge about bees, to increase interest in bees and pollination. And this is just, you know, a snapshot of some of the of this organization or some others that you can find. Some of them are quite passionate about their cause. Some of them are going by science. Some of them are trying to mobilize and make some of these insects and this pollinator quite strong in the long run. But comes, you know, like many creature, bees is subject to many problems. And for many years, we are taking honeybees, especially for granted. Domesticated, it's just like many of the people who are dealing with honeybees. But starting like the mid of the first decade of the 20th century, like 2006, we started to find something quite weird and unusual. We could have like a very strong colony. It has a lot of food. It has a lot of brood, which is like the young, the eggs and the larvae. And the queen is there, but all of a sudden the worker just gone. They vanish. And the EPA just put a definition for this phenomena. They call it colony collapse disorder. I'm putting it here wrong. It's not CDC, CCD. You know, all the COVID and CDC just on the mind, right? But the colony collapse disorder, or CCD, is the phenomena that occur when the majority of worker bees, and this the worker is the majority of the population of the bee, and they are the ones that doing everything almost in the hive except laying egg. So this worker just disappear and leave behind a queen, most of the time very strong queen, a lot of food, and they left also few of like nurse bees or like brood. I'm sorry, nurse bees took care of the brood or the remaining immature bees and the queen. So it sounds like for like some of me and my colleagues, they call it the bees just gave up. But why? That was like the $1 trillion, actually, not $1 million question. There is a lot of like theories and a lot of paper have been put to find out why CCD is happening, what's going on. There are many things. We have, like, for example, a lot of diseases. Honeybees is just like other animals, they are subject to diseases. For many years, they have some protozoa, we call it nosema. And for many years, we have one species, and this species was, you know, under control by some antibiotics. All of a sudden, we have another species. It started almost with a little bit before the CCD. And the new species is just out of control. We cannot get it much. For many years, we have a lot of virus that can impact and affect honeybees. And the honeybees can tolerate many of them. But lately, we have a new virus, we call it the Israeli virus, because first discovered there. And it is deadly, it is lethal. And we don't have much cure for it so far. Many of the old diseases, like fungal diseases, like the choke brood disease and European American fall brood disease from bacteria, they are rejuvenating as a result of that. Once you have a compromised honeybees by this infestation of other things, you know, the immune system will lower down, and these bacteria and fungus will come and make the case even worse. For many times, like since the 80s, 1980s, we have the Varroa mite. This is an external parasite for honeybees, but for many times we have some, you know, remedies for it. However, lately we cannot control this Varroa mite anymore because of the resistance to many of the compounds that we are using. We have some other insects that can go and destroy the hive, like the Acrapis, which is like another mite that will impact the trachea, or like the airways of the honeybees. Small hive beetle was like a new pests that, distributed along many places in the world in very short time and destroyed a lot of bees. Wax moth is an old pest, but still there. We have malnutrition for bees, and that's because of like the following reason. We have a lot of pollution, and this is impact and affect honeybees a lot. We have a lot of habitat fragmentation, like you can like get your apiary or your colonies and divided them and like move them to some place and then return them back. And that's a lot of stress for this insect. Adding to that, some of the management practices now, migratory pollination is huge. Like we have about 1.2 million acre of almond only in California, almost in the Central Valley and some of the other small valleys around. And in very just small time, between maybe like February to April, each of these acre need at least one hive, maybe two sometimes. So you would imagine how many of these bee colonies are moving from one place to California. I used to work like in central Canada, and we used to move bees from there all the way to California during the almond season. And that's a lot of stress for these insects. We have a lot of genetic variation also in honeybees, and that's, didn't give us like a strong characteristics that we need, especially for the queens. And lately we have also pesticide. And when we are talking about pesticide, we are not talking about pesticides in general. We are talking about the misuse. This is all the time is the word that is used, misuse of pesticide, because all the pesticides that is in the market, of course, has label. And this label, govern the application of this pesticide for like single reason, not to make harm. And all the applicator of these pesticides should abide by this label because it's federal law by itself. So misuse of pesticide is something, and also can get into the equation here, the whole picture of what's going on honeybees and its stressor. So there is waves of, if we just go to the late or the last stressor here, pesticide and insecticide in general, honeybees, like since World War II, was like a subject for waves of synthetic insecticides, starting from like the organochlorine, like the DDT, and alike organophosphate, like malicion and mate, and pyrethroids, and then have the IGR, the insect growth regulator, and all of these has resistance during the 80s. Like the group here, we have resistance for them during the 80s, and many of them are not are not used in the US. And then we have the newcomer, the neonicotinoid, or I will call them the neonics just for abbreviation. And this is, these started in like the 90s, early 90s. And see, I don't want to like get you a lot about the structure, but this is for some of you who are quite good in chemistry, that's the structure and how the change in the, and some of the active group make different chemicals. And it is not one generation. We call them all the neonic, but they are not one generation, and they are not even one group. So this is here just, a little bit of background about neonics. It's a little bit complicated, but they are mostly working on one of the receptors of the acetylcholine receptors. They are agonistic of insect acetylcholine receptor. The first generation is the 3 compounds that we have, and then we have a second generation, and this is where group 4A. This is these groups are groups that have been established based on IRAC. This is International Resistance Organization, and they have all of the chemical or the insecticide in the world, and they divide them based on mode of action. So we have like 3 generation or 4 generation from the neonics, the last generation is belong to a different group, 4C. And one of these product, or the only product in this group is we call it sulfoxaflor. The thing with neonic is just like other or some other insecticides that they are water soluble. So they are systemic insecticide and they are selective, which means that they are effective on sap feeding insect in agriculture system. Not all sap feeding insect too, but some of them. And their toxicity on mammals is quite low. So that's why they were like approved at the beginning. But why neonics? Why we need another chemical? Isn't we have enough? Problem with insecticide is that insect very, very smart. They can develop resistance quite fast, and they start like compounds that we have. They have a lot of generation, and we know like resistance is genetic, so they can develop this resistance quite good and very short. They have like for neonic too, they have proven very essential for some seed coating, like the oilseed rape, sunflower corn. They were very effective on many sap feeding insects, that I said, like aphids, true bugs, white flies, plant and flea hoppers. Production rates were high by agrochemical company in 2009 with about $2.6 billion of neonic production. European countries started the trying to minimize and to get these neonics banned from many times. And you can see here, this is some of the production graph here for some of these neonics and their production over the time in total, and one by one of each of them. So that's the thing that we have here. They are absorbed in the soil, they are absorbed in the water too. And this is the two ways. This is a little bit of complicated chart here, but once you have like residue in the soil, it will go with the surface water and it will go with to the bees when they are drinking water, or it will go to the plant, it will go through the nectar and the pollen, and go to the bees as well. So we did some work starting 2016 about some, we want to find in Arizona what is the occurrence of neonics in different product of honeybees and the honeybee worker himself. So we studied that in many places around the state. We started to go through some of these PR and apiaries and collect samples and bring them and prepare them and send them to the lab, so we can measure how much of neonic in this product. And this is some of the result of our first year here. This is here some of the result from our first year, and this is here the result of all of the neonic that we found, plus the total of neonic in different locations. As you can see here, this colored bars here, this is the different neonics in different location, and the red one is the total of this neonic from this location over the time, over the whole season. And you can, if you look at the y-axis here, this is the concentration of this neonic, and this is microgram per kilogram. And if you look here, the highest of all of that accumulated within one location here in Samfield, it was almost close to 16 microgram per kilogram. I want you to just remember these numbers when we go forward. Another way that we put these results is over time. So you have them like in November, December, January, and April. And for our surprise is that we found them quite high in November, but low when it comes to April, the time from January to April. This is again here some of the same result, but we put it in terms of where can we find most of these products in the bees. In the bees itself, the bee worker, we didn't find any significant amount that the machine can detect. For honey, we can find, different variation here, but they are all still on the range of like 1 to 2 microgram per kilogram. And same here for pollen. So the following year, or the second year of our studies, we were trying to focus on pollen. We said, okay, where the insects are collecting from the flower. That's where most of the protein there. That's also the fat, where we can see if there is something really attached to it. And the insect has 2 types of pollen. Some of them that we can collect from them in what we call like a lab, just before they enter the hive, and the other one, they put it inside the hexagonal wax cells, and we call it pollen bread or bee bread, because they mix pollen with honey in it, and that's what the colony will eat. So we were like trying to find what's going on in terms of the residue of these neonics in both type of pollen. And that was like the results that we found. As you can see, we have different location here, and we have like the amount is just like the concentration is part per billion, and this is here we can like find 1 part per billion or half, or still quite low in the trap pollen. Red pollen, it's a little bit high. You can see like the Yuma area, we at some times, or with some of the Flucanimates, this is one of these neonics, we can find about 21 part per billion in this location. But the rest was, as you see, like between 0 and half part per billion. So in terms of what we are finding there, like all of these, amounts that we are finding, how can we compare it to what we can find in what is the level that is allowed in many countries? So there is not a lot of available information on the limit allowed. We have only some that we can find, like in Canada, in UK, in Italy, and this is the numbers here. Like for this first multi-carpet, this is the first product here in Canada. The allowed level is 1,160 part per billion. In Italy, it's a little bit higher, but closer. But our data showed that we have less than 6 part per billion. It's quite low. The second product, the same. We didn't even find it. The third, almost the same. We cannot find it. And the Saclorpert, we didn't find it. Flucanimed, even that the average is about 2, and the allowed one is about 20,000 parts per billion. So in terms of what we can find compared to what's allowed in many, developed country system health, we have very, very minimal amount, quite nil. And my question at the time for myself, why? I started this project and I'm expecting that I'll find a lot of neonic and like honey and pollen and like bees. Why I didn't find that much? I think the thing here, or the key here, is the relationship, and the relationship between beekeeper and growers, and how both of them are relying on bees, and they are making their best to follow the label of this insecticide when they are applying it. And by following the label, they just they have to tell the beekeeper that they are going to spray. When they spray, they go at the end of the day, so most of the bees are back to their hive, so they are not exposed to anything, and many other precaution and steps that they are taking to make sure that they are keeping these bees vigorous. The other thing is following the label, really, and that's one of the things that most of us, we don't know about commercial ag and how they are applying this insecticide.
Ayman, I apologize for interrupting, but we have a great question. It's actually from one of our 2-time alumni teachers, Marianne Colley. She was wondering, why were those locations specifically chosen? The one in Buckeye, Harquahala, Stanfield? If you don't mind explaining that, or why those locations?
That's a good question, and I'm sorry I missed that explanation, but this is mostly like the agriculture or most of the agriculture area in Arizona. That's where these neonicotinoids are applied. I don't want to go like somewhere in the desert and look for these, but I want to go, or I wanted to go to some places where we know from our pest control advisor and growers that they are applying neonics in these regions. So we choose these sites based on that, and all these sites, the hive itself is just adjacent to fields, whether it's like a vegetable field, an alfalfa field, cotton field, and so on. So it is an agriculture area where these units are applied, and that's would make the study subjective. So we cannot go in some place where we cannot find, or we don't apply these, and we try to find. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. And then I'll let you finish up, but we want to save time for that. We have a couple other really good questions. So I'll let you continue, and just don't forget, I have a couple of questions, please. I don't know why, but your audio started to cut up a little bit, but we'll see how it continues. We'll work through it.
Okay. So this is just, the conclusion of what we found here, and it is just no different from what we show in the slide. But remember when we were talking about the colony collapse disorder phenomena, it's not insects. Yeah, it's exactly, but we have to look for where actually our problem is. As I was talking about the museum, and this museum is just like giving a rare hive worker. We have like for many years only one species, Enzima aedes, and it was under control. All of a sudden we had another species like about, it's almost more than 10 years ago, Enzima cerana, and this is very, very hard. And Varroa is out of control. This is to most of the, even if you want to apply chemicals, there is no other methods to manage them, and they can like destroy colonies in very short time. The Varroa is a complex now, and it is very hard to manage. Plus other diseases, as we mentioned. Beekeeping practices, as I told you, there is a lot of these bee colonies are subject to the movement of very long time. All of the time they are enclosed, they are not allowed to go out. And once they are at the site of pollination, they are pushed to pollinate quite fast because the window of the time is short. So they are like having weeks on the road, or like a trailer, and everything is closed. The bee is not allowed. A lot of heat inside, a lot of microorganisms and eczema or viruses or whatever are spreading. And then once they are there, they are here is the food, just eat and wait, and then back. So it's very hard on any creature, let alone on Kung Fu. And this is the same one that we were talking about from the beginning. All of this stressor is on honeybees and how they can affect the health of honeybees a lot. And there is also like not neonic that actually we can see they are finding or making a lot of problem. We have some fungicide. One of them is making some problem with the fitness and the strength of bee worker, and there is a lot of study about it. So to the good news, as I said, like the colony collapse disorder started around 2005, 2006. And this is here, some of the graphs here that show us honeybees is recovering. Quite good. If you look here in the US, this first top left here, you can see like this line here represents the start of the colony collapse disorder. We have some decrease after the colony collapse disorder, but a couple of years later, they are going up, up and down, but in general, the trend is going up. In Canada, similar trend. Yeah, after the colony collapse disorder, we have a dip here, but after that, it's going up. Same in Europe, and even like the world. The problem is we are demanding a lot of bees. We are like this. There's a lot of natural habitat of pollinator that is destroyed, and this natural habitat like host for many pollinators that we know and many other we don't know about. And once one of these habitat is destroyed, we look around and see, okay, how can we compensate for this loss? And the only option we have is honeybees, and we put more on honeybees. We cannot do that. It is not like an easy way or an easy life to raise bees. It's a very hard job, and it's not like very good paying too. So, but we need it, and but we also need to, restore this habitat and bring back the natural pollinator and many other pollinators that we might need and might need their help. I want to end with you about some of the answer for one of the questions that we have. This is here a quite fascinating study on, have been done like a little bit years ago in 2009. And here you are comparing the value of some of the pollinator. And here's the value not by the value of the service of the pollinator itself, but how much it can actually impact agriculture. And there is a lot of factors that they put together, and quite a complete study and quite well-rounded one. And you can see, like, I'll give you like here just one example, like in the US, box here, like the value for agricultural pollination in the US in $1 billion is about 220 or $219 billion. Of course, it's more than that now. The value of insect pollination is about 5%, 6 to 14%, $14 billion out of the 219. And it's the same like in Canada, almost the 5%. It's a little bit high in Australia and way higher in New Zealand, but it's a little lower in the EU, like and France and United Kingdom. So yes, we need the pollinator, we need insect pollinator, but we have a lot of other pollinators that need our attention. And we rely on them even without knowing. And that's the thing that we need to also like, bring our attention to and bring our effort to as well.
Thank you.
So with that, I would like to acknowledge the funding of this project and all the help that I get from my team, and as well as all of these fascinating beekeepers that helped us over the years with collecting the samples we have and the relationship we have, at least. And with that, I would like to thank you, and I'm here for any question.
Okay, so thank you, Ayman. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It was like we could hear you nice and strong, and then there were times that it would break up. So we will be sure to share your information, but I would like to get through a couple questions. First of all, Ayman, would you please explain your interest in bees and how you got started? Just briefly, if you could, like very briefly.
Do we have time?
Well, okay, quickly.
Yeah, it started, I was like about 11 years old. I visited a beekeeper with my dad. He was a friend of my dad, and that was a connection between me and bees since then.
But tell them where you're from,
I'm from Egypt originally, and I spent time in Canada when I get my PhD and postdoc, and then I moved here. And before that, even I was in Ohio State for my master as well. So as I said, my connection with insects started with bees, and I was like beekeeper when I was 17 years old. And I still like, I'm not like managing it, but my partner still managed some of the bees for us back in Egypt and Canada. But it started with this passion about the bees and this fascinating animal. I'm ending up like loving all bugs or insects. So that's the thing. And I worked like in pollination and bee production in Canada as well, and across Canada and the US, quite frankly. And this picture actually in the back here, this when I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This is the back of our bee yard, of the university bee yard, and this is some of the, you know, the nuke, when we have some of these bees that we would like to keep during the winter. And we just take off the cover and expose them to some of the snow just to take the picture. We were like students at the time.
Nice, nice. Okay, I have one last question before we switch to our last presenter. This question came up. It was very fascinating. Do mosquito and moth populations increase depending on the crops that are planted?
Yes.
Can you give an example?
Like you are talking, it dependent on the plant you plant. That will change the whole system. If like it's quite known that when we have some, especially like grass plants, like corn or like wheat or something like that, especially at the time of irrigation, they could be like a good place for mosquito. For butterflies, remember, like the butterflies themselves, they are the adults, you know, the adult butterflies, not the larva. They are looking for nectar. So something can attract them is the, you know, the smell of the nectar, is the color of the petal of the flower, how green the plant from like a space or from a distance, and so on. So yeah, each plant is like a fingerprint by itself when it comes to attracting insects. And there is a lot of cues like chemical and visual that played in this relationship.
Okay, thank you. Okay, just two last things. We noticed that some of your information was from like 2015, and in today's society, everything is, you know, up to date, if we consider it old. But my question is, where can teachers go for information to find out the number of colonies? That one was fascinating.
Yeah, that's the thing, is most of the information that we are getting a little, it's like census, you know. We are getting information especially if you are looking for big data. We have like small data, like the last thing I was like sharing with Gigette a few days ago, my reading in the Florida Honeybee Research and Extension Center. And they were just having some of this information there about the increase in their hives and how like it's coming back. And it was something, you know, cheerful, because especially like in Florida, it was one of the states that have been hit hard by many of the pests and the insect and diseases over the years. So to see like honeybee numbers and the colonies are coming back is something, you know, positive. We have a lot of these, you know, research and extension centers. They are in everywhere. We have like in Cornell, in Ohio State, in California, we have a USD lab of honeybees here in Tucson. So all of these are like good sources of information, because quite frankly, it's especially for like for us as teacher and for like researcher, it's quite good to find your information from a source that you can trust, not a source that it will come or go with our opinion or our passion. So we have a lot of scientists who are devoting a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there is a lot of resources available for them just to provide us with the right information. And it's a little bit of search and we can find them. And as I said, good start is a lot of these land grant universities and their affiliated research and extension center and offices.
I would like to add on to that. The teachers, after they complete their survey today, they will receive a link to a Google Drive that has information broken down by grade level on all of our topics, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9 through 12. And we did include that research that you mentioned from Florida. So the teachers will have access to that. Okay, last little question here. How much of the honeybee is native to Arizona?
We have, you know, a lot of good beekeepers and honeybees around. But for our production, it is not that high. So I don't know exactly how much we are producing in terms of the ton, but I have the USDA information somewhere we can pick it up. But we are not a very big state in terms of honeybees. But we are very big state in what we call station beekeeping. Many of beekeepers from across the country are bringing their bees here, especially at the time, of maybe like November to January, to prepare them before moving them to California.
Okay. All right.
And from that we can get some of the honey, but whether it's like honey coming from Arkansas or like Maine or a little bit mixed with Arizona flower, it's something. But we have some of our beekeepers who are like producing from here. But remember, beekeeper is behind the source of two things, like the nectar and pollen. Nectar to get the honey and pollen to get like a pollination contract. So they can go different places, during the one season. So they might be during the summer, they are in Northern California or like Northern Arizona, and then they can come down during the winter here. And then once come the almond pollination, they go to the Central Valley or go to pollinate somewhere else, maybe in Washington State or like Montana or Texas. So there is a lot of migratory bees, and the honeybee, the honey that collected at the end is from these different sources.
Okay, thank you so much, Ayman. This was very higher level for sure, and it was very informative. So I thank you, and I thank everyone for their patience with the technical difficulties. But
yeah, so
go ahead. Pardon me.
One last thing. So I hope that you will go back to the question about comparing the value of agricultural pollination, like 52 or almost 53% of you put honeybees, and comparing with the other type of bees and the insect, we are close to maybe 60, 70%, 70%. But most of the pollination that's coming for us is free. They're coming from wind, they are coming from water, they are coming from other animals. But because most of the habitats that have been destroyed for most of the natural pollinator, it's quite hard for us to do anything but to try to rely on honeybees, and that will bring a lot of problem because we are giving this honeybee a task that's very difficult.
Premiumbee.com.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayman.